And welcome back to part 24 of Final Fantasy 15. Today we're tackling the last part of wrap-up, essentially. You're going to first see me restock on every item I burnt through in Coastal Mark just to be in a more comfortable position. Just me to immediately go waste them by going to a stronghold that's a higher level than I realised it was. And just trying to do it anyway. But either way, I bring it up, there's the quest. I didn't get to see it because I scribbled straight through it. Like I said, I've only got a small preview window when I'm doing the post record, so I didn't really get to see that. But it's in the top right. It's in the deserty region that you did the first two chapters in. Right at the top of that region, there's this giant stronghold over here, this Imperial fort.
Better keep up.
And it's also around this time that Prompto can now start bringing up random conversations talking about Aranea. Which I find kind of funny because it's like the help giving to the fact that he's now stuck between who does he have a crush on, Cindy or Aranea. If I was Prompto, I'd try and go for Aranea, even though it's just he doesn't really have a chance either way. But you can, I know who I'd dream about more often. I don't really find Cindy that interesting of a character, to be honest. Like, boobs don't define a character. I'm sorry. I'd much rather a character with style, coolness, and ass kickery. Or someone who's cute, than Texan girl with boobs, because that's essentially Cindy. But that's not an interesting character to me. Maybe I'm just not enough of a man to think that dumb of a way. But I'd much rather a cool personality than boobs the character, which is why I prefer Aranea over Cindy, and I prefer almost any other character over Cindy. This one's the only one that's optional, and it is also the last one of the Imperial storming you can do with the Four-Mouth Garrison, I think that says. I can only read it in small preview, but... And so because of that, you can probably take a wild guess, it's the most difficult. And the most blatant lie is that they try and ask you to be stealthy. The stealth is broken the moment you actually properly advance. But there's an item over here, so it's worth picking up. Once you've beaten it, I think this is one of the ones that's worth returning to after you've beaten it, because there's some good loot in here.
Take care to avoid detection. If a trooper is alerted to our presence, it will awaken its fellows.
No matter what I've ever tried on this, I've never managed to do it stealthily, so I just decided to go all out and just take the fight to them and burn my way through. Ooh. There is a turret up here, but it's way too much in the open, so you'll find it not as helpful as you perhaps want it to be. But you're going to see it. I'm going to try my hardest to get stuff done with it. The generator's immune to it. It's going to overheat on me because I overuse it, which you can see it glowing now because it's about to overheat. There it goes. And I get off it just to get a move on, but we just get bombarded with missiles, explosives and weaponry because it's way too in the middle in the open. It's too dangerous to use comfortably. Ow. I think the only problem now going back and playing Noctis with anything is that because I don't have this, he's the only character that doesn't have a recovery move with square. Just every time I get knocked down, just having to tank it. So I'm sure I'll get it eventually, just not yet. Because I can't be bothered to grind for AP, because I think it's either a 333 AP cost or a 999 cost. Either way, I'm not prepared to do it yet. And I believe this is also another section that just ends up becoming the Gladio show, which I try my damnedest to refrain from doing, I promise you, but it's just, I wanted to do this section now, and I realised quite quickly I was not as prepared for it as I should have been. It's nowhere near as bad as Costamark, don't get me wrong, but it's not the most fun to try and do either. What you really should be doing with these mechs is trying to deal with the rockets on the top of them. They do become a lot more manageable when the rockets on top to the top of them are broken off, and they are easy to break with warp strikes. If you get up to them with a warp strike and have a pole arm or the normal sword sort of thing, you should be able to start breaking through relatively easily. But yeah, we really haven't got that much. Tomorrow's part, assuming I can still upload tomorrow, because I'm never 100% sure on what my upload schedule is going to end up being like. I'm quite lucky in my that I've had enough time spare recently to keep up with this 5 uploads last week and the upload so far this week. I'm very fortunate about it, but I don't know. But assuming my luck continues, and I get to upload tomorrow we will be heading to Altissia to advance the plots properly. And it's also another part that's relatively long because I show off a lot of what you can do in Altissia because I wanted to make the part afterwards nothing but the important stuff in the plot. Whilst tomorrow's part is not as important. Like, it's still plot stuff because we're going to Altissia, we're going to an entirely new location, but it's not as important as everything afterwards. But then once we're after that point, every part until the final part of the game is going to be nothing but straight plot. The only break will be in one section added new to the Royal Edition I won't get into now, where we'll be doing a few extra new side quests that are added, and that's about it. But even then, as I said, we've got nothing but straight plot until the end. So this is our last normal part. Tomorrow's our last part that's not 100% plot focused, and then that's it until we beat the game. Which is kind of daunting that this part, like this Let's Play's gone by as quick as it has. I know a lot of it's down to how much time I've had recently, because it was like a part a month since March beforehand. But it's still like, holy shit, because I was expecting this Let's Play, like the main adventure, to still be around like 50 odd parts. And we're in the second half of the game now, and we're on like part 24. Like, I can easily see this Let's Play finishing before like part 45 sort of thing. Like, I can imagine it being like 41, 42-ish area is my estimation. I don't actually know, because my recording is at 33 right now, my recordings. And I've still got quite a ways to go. And here's the return of Loki and Kalgo. Loki being from the end of chapter 2, when we broke into the sky, and Kalgo being the commander we attempted to kidnap when we stormed the second stronghold in chapter 6, I want to say. After everything happened and we got our car back and Jared got killed, and we went on our revenge streak. And this is the last time I believe we see Loki in the main plot. It's not the last time we see Caligo. We've got one more visit of that jackass, but I believe it's the last time we see Loki, because I think Loki, the only other time we saw him was in a festival that's no longer in the game, which was the Assassin's Festival. Which the Assassin's Festival was weird. I'm just going to put it out there. Don't get me wrong, it was fun, and the way they had you being able to go onto the Stalin rooftops was pretty cool, so you can't do that in the main game or at any point outside the events. The only time you could do it was on the Assassin Festival, but it was like weird. That's the only way to put it, because it was you knew it was advertising, you knew it was a crossover sort of thing, but it was Assassin's Creed. Like, don't get me wrong, Creed has had its odd moments of sci-fi fantasy, like, especially in the earlier games with how it crosses over of going back into the past and whatnot, but it just seemed really out of place for Final Fantasy of all things. And the plot was essentially, Nox is a huge Assassin's Creed fan, they go to the Starlum, shit kicks off, so Noxus embraces a cosplay because it also happens to correlate with like an assassin festival, and has fun with it, messing with the Imperials whilst dressing as an assassin. And so I think at one point even Loki comments on, like, he's like, you do realise you're being a twit here, right? The only part of it I didn't really like that much was that there's one mission where they actually go really hard on it for like being stealthy, and the game is not built for stealth mechanics, and when there's a fail state on failing to be stealthy, yeah, you notice it. But anyway, these two mechs that fall down, one of them is powered by Loki, the other is powered by Caligo. And once again, despite the fact they'll fucking explode when you kill them, they won't die from this. Like, I'm pretty sure a lot of people, especially if you didn't do side quests, were quite comfortable in saying Loki died at the end of chapter 2, and you'd be completely forgiven for believing that because you have no reason to think otherwise. Other than this side quest, because he explodes, he's in the mech taunting you, and he detonates. He shouldn't be alive. No amount of Phoenix Downs should do that.
When will it end? Want it went, fight more, whine less.
Actually, no, I think the next one's up. It's the last conflicts you do is Loki and Caligo. I just assumed it was those two since they were the new ones that came in. It must not be then. But Loki and Caligo's mechs, you can adopt the same strategy as most other mechs that don't have swords with them, which is they'll have rockets at the top, so aim at the rockets. This is another section where it kind of shows its issue, where all the guards are too close to the ground, so I can't aim low enough to hit them with the machine gun. I said the turret's just not brilliantly placed. Like, it's balanced, don't get me wrong, because you can't abuse it, but you can't really use it full stop is the problem, so it kind of loses its charm a bit. To be fair, I'm sticking as Noctis a lot longer than I remember doing. I know at some point I swapped to Gladio and kind of stick with him. Is this what I'm going to do? Yeah, this is it. As I say that. Because you can block bullets. So in bullet sections like this, just tap the square every so often when a bullet's coming at you. You're almost definitely going to get one or two of them, like that. Just like I said, just every so often, just tap square. Because you're going to be being hit by bullets all the time. So if you tap square, it's just a free parry. Anytime there's enemies with guns, it's literally your best friend to be Gladio with the parry skill, because you can get so many parries out of it without much hassle. Like when there's a lot less, it's a little bit harder because you're not getting shot at as much, but when there's loads of them around, have at it. And it's also worth mentioning that this is like the last proper part where we'll be able to swap between teammates easily. Oh, now Loki and Caligo come down, I think. Because anytime it's a plus important fight, you can't swap characters, you're only stuck with Noctis. And most of the fights after this part are plus important, so it's going to be the Noctis show for most of the rest of the game. Only really breaking up again when we get into one of the much later chapters. Right, because it kicked us out being Iggy, I try and play Iggy again. And this is another poor situation of Iggy is useful, I promise, I'm just not getting to show it off here. Don't worry, he'll get his time to shine. I've got a very long part where I use mostly Ignis for the whole thing. And I get a lot of good use out of him. It's just unfortunately he's kind of the bottom bitch of all the playable characters. I feel really bad for Iggy, I do. Like, because he is such a powerful character now, I've done a non-existent job in showing off how effective he is. Because usually you build up combos, you build up the damage meter, and your damage times and sort of thing. He also has an ability called Overclock, which will double up whatever times bonus you're currently on. So if you get it at 4 times and use it, you're sitting on 8 times damage per attack, which is beautiful. Fire is for single enemies getting a lot of damage in, Ice is for AoEs, and Electric is for making distance, because you're very quick with that and hard to hit. If you're struggling a lot, Lightning Strike might be helpful, because as you saw the game freak out a little when I'm using it, you do dart around like a maniac, making it hard for you to be hit. You will still get clocked, trust me you will, but it's a lot harder for it to happen. With these two guys, my main strategy is to focus on one, because it becomes a lot easier when you're not dealing with 2 of them. And if you can, and you're not playing as trying to be as Iggy like I am, the rockets are sitting on the top, as I previously mentioned, knock them off. You can hit them with the warp strikes and then batter them like 2 to 3 times and they will just snap off. Which makes the fight a lot easier when you're not being bombarded by rockets all the time. Here's Overclock. You see how the times multipier's gone up to 7.7 times damage now. And now it's up to 8. That, plus Total Clarity. Prompto's dead, but that with Total Clarity equals a lot of damage. And I also love just how it would kind of lock onto everything. I get Prompto back up in the fight though, because he is quite helpful. Even if he has the least amount of HP as everyone, like everyone's above 1,000 now, thankfully. We're not like we were at the start, where it's like Prompto had like 100, it felt like. Oh, and there goes Gladio. So I have to get Gladi up as well now. I can't remember when I swapped back to Gladio. I think I do at one point or another. Either that or I swapped to Noct. Oh, there we go, I swapped to Noct. And I'm hoping this is about the part where I realise, rockets, deal with them. Because they're the main reason we're having any struggles right now, is because of the rockets. Because the stomping you can deal with, the swinging you can deal with, it's just the rockets that are a pain in the ass. But anyway, after we deal with this fort, which hasn't got too much left, I say in a wide margin. Because it hasn't got too much left, but once we deal with it, we're going back to Cape Cayam to do the last bits of cleanup, and then that's it really. Because there's a few little things you can do in Cape Cayam that are pretty neat, and that's about it. Like, this part is probably going to end up being one of the least interesting parts in the Let's Play, and I understand. because you're not like getting any special reward. We're just doing a 4 and then dicking about in Cape Cayam for 28 minutes and 30 seconds. And I say that 28 minutes and 15 seconds because my intro. Which, to be fair, I'm quite happy with the intro. Like, I've been wanting to do an intro for a really long time. I just wasn't sure how I wanted to really do it. And as I knew if I was going to do one, firstly, it couldn't be any longer than 20 seconds in my book. Because I feel like no intro should be that long. Because you're just kind of like, alright, come on, bring it on. Like, it's not a TV show. You don't need some big fancy opening. Keep it under 20 seconds. And secondly, I wanted it to reflect what games I enjoy, or what games built me. So I wanted there to be Tomb Raider, because Tomb Raider was, when I was super little, something I always watched my dad play, and picked it up and started playing more myself as I got older. Persona has been been part of my life for as long as I remember. Devil May Cry has been a part of my life for as long as I remember. And then I also wanted to mix in a little bit of something new, which is why I got Neptunia in there, because I've really grown to love the Neptunia series since the summer. Like, I genuinely go back and play Veer at least once a day. I treat it like most people treat their MMOs, because there's so much little things to do, so many little extras stuff to do, side quests, hunts, because you can build up your hunting rank on it, and if you build up your hunting rank enough, you can challenge all these extra bosses and do all these elite ranks that earn you like millions of money on it. And you can just build it up, and it's badass. I think they call it, I think it's credits, the currency, I forgot now. Because I went to say Gil my first time around. I was like, no, that's because we're playing Final Fantasy. It's not Gil, it's credits. But I just love the NEP series, and I really hope Rebirth 1 Plus gets a Western announcement, because Rebirth 1 Plus is just Rebirth 1, a remake of the original, but with a few extra things and a few extra DLC pieces added to it, so it can get an official Steam release and get a PS4 release, but it's currently Japan only. So I'm hoping, come the conference in early November, that IFI are holding, which IFI being the company that make the games, they're going to say Rebirth 1 coming to the West, because I'll happily let's play it here. Even if Rebirth 1's technically not canon anymore, I still want to show off what the first game was like, and show how it grew in the rest of the series. Right, so it is canon, but it's not in Hyperdimension. You notice in all the titles they're always called Hyperdimension Neptunia or whatever. That's the name of the dimension the game's set in. The first game's set in Super Dimension, not Hyperdimension. And it's kind of because there was nothing really else they could do with the plot on that, and the first game originally, from what I could tell, was god-awful, so they wanted to start afresh. So they decided to make that dimension Super Dimension, and then reinvent and slightly redesign how every character was for the second game onwards. Some for better, some for worse. Like, all the introduction to the Little Sisters, having it all be grounded in water instead of floating continents, all much smarter ideas in my book. And Nep's personality not being as thick is also very much appreciated. But Vert's going from straight up lesbian to sister complex, not as funny, not as fun. It's a bit like, oh, I kind of liked how she was. Like, she's still an absolute gaming nerd, but it's not as interesting. And everyone else is perfectly fine, and I prefer Hyperdimension over Super Dimension as a whole. But I cut back the Cape Cayam now, restock on a few supplies because we burnt through more than I was expecting, and then the rest of it is just meandering and side questing a little bit. I show off the upgrading with Sid, since we did a little bit of it ages ago and then haven't touched it since. And then I get roadblocks as well on the upgrading, because I completely forgot about some upgrades he won't do straight away. Some upgrades it takes several in-game stages for him to do, and I completely forgot about that. So I give him something expecting to get it straight back, and he just goes, okay, I'll see you when it's ready. And I'm like, wait, huh? So you're not going to be able to see me get the ultimate weapon, which was my every plan and something I commented on in previous parts that I was planning on doing before going out. But it eventually came to a point where it's like, look, we've got good enough weaponry, I can get it in post-game and just show off how to get it, sort of thing, in a post-game thing. If you want to get it, the second... That's it. Okay, Ignis. The second stronghold that we took out, on the outskirts of it, like, you know, that giant part, like, road that goes up to it that has the big walls on the left and right of it, that's like right next to it. On the other side of that, there's like these unicorn-looking demons on that, and on the... I can't remember if it's a certain hunt or whether they're just there during the night, but it's one or the other. They have a chance of dropping a material that is what is needed for the ultimate weapon. All the other materials you can find easily. because the materials, if you've been following along, you have the materials to get the engine blade to level 2. The material to get to level 3, there's one in Lestalem, and there's one right here. There's a well to the right of the hut here, which I get a little later on, and it's literally on the well, it's right there. So there's no reason why you can't get the engine blade to level 3. But the level 4 engine blade is when it changes its name and just becomes Ultimate Blade. Which, to be fair, is pretty cool. I like the idea of having your starting weapon become the ultimate weapon. I always enjoy that in games that do that. It was like in Ninja Gaiden, where it's like if you kept the wooden baton and like maxed it out, it became the most godly weapon ever.
It all starts with a seed. Here, try these.
Sure, they didn't do that with Neo when it came to it. As much as I enjoyed Neo, there's a lot of things with Neo that I hope they improve for the sequel. Also, this is introducing us to farming. Unfortunately, we're not Haru, so we're not masterminds at it, but we can do a bit of farming to get some resources. You can't eat it, you can't use it in your cooking, but the purpose of it, which is not made apparent straight away, is that you can sell them, and you can sell them to get elite and exotic equipment or other items sort of thing. Like, you grow them, which you're going to get introduced to when you approach it over here. Like, you sow some seeds, and then you come back at a different time. If you want to make the most of it, sow them and then go do something in the plot, because then by the time you come back, it's most likely to have grown somewhat. Like, what I should have really done is set them and then gone and done the optional 2 royal tombs the past couple parts, and then came back, because then it would have probably been all grown. They probably would have had a mountain ton to work with. And Chocobro's gone home. Also, when we're done with Final Fantasy 15, that's not straight away, obviously, because this game has been an absolute mission to record, but I do want to record other Final Fantasy games because I hold the franchise quite close to my heart. But what I was hoping on was at some point during the year getting an announcement of some kind of mega collection of all of them for PS4 or something, because, you know, the game hit its 30th anniversary over a year ago and we still have very little to show for it other than more DLC for Final Fantasy 15 and Dissidia. Oh, and the expansion, the Stormblood expansion for 14, that came out as well, didn't it?
I need. I'll take it from here.
The first upgrade for the engine blade is nothing to write home about because you're kind of expected to do it right at the start, but once you get it to level 2, you're set. I think this is the one that when we give it to him, you have to wait. Yeah, it says wait for Sid to finish the modification. I'm like, wait, what? Like, I cut out a lot of time of me talking to him and trying to work out, wait, what, how long does it take him to do it? And I also cut out, like, once I rest the night at the camp a little later on, I go back and talk to him to realise, no, it doesn't just do it in one day, it takes him several. Which is a little annoying, but it's not the end of the world. By the time we come back after the main plot, he would have been done. But the gemstone is actually over here, there's a well, but we take the photo that Prompto wants whilst we're here. You can also go up to the top of the lighthouse up there and take another photo, but rather annoyingly, it won't let you go up there. Like, when you go up to click on the switch, the only option is advanced plot. It won't let you just take it up to the roof of the lighthouse to take a picture up there, which is a shame because it's a bloody good position to get a picture from. And I love this picture. Every playthrough I've done at the game, every time I've got to this point, if you take a picture there, Iris is blocking off Gladio. Like, she's doing it deliberately. Like, she's more important than her brother, she fucking knows it.
Yeah, that too. It's just, I always had this impression that the Empire was filled with nothing.
And this is Prompto talking about Aranea, but here's the glass gemstone, which is what you need to upgrade the engine blade again. And I cut again because I went back up to Sid.
You seem quite smitten.
And this is Iggy and everyone else calling Prompto out for having a crush on Aranea. Which I kept in because it always makes me chuckle.
Okay, let me think about this for a sec.
I've no doubt both of them can wait.
Sorry Prompto, but I don't really fancy your chances with either or. Like, Cindy's married to her work, is I think is the easiest way to put it, and Aranea is too badass for you.
What's that there?
Oh, this is another side quest that's worth doing for later, is the only way to put it. Without spoiling anything, because he'll ask you to collect a bunch of little souvenirs that if you get for him, he can have in his collection. But every time you see him in the future, he'll have that collection with him.
Never paid attention to them before.
And so if you like actually go out of your way to do it, you can kind of have the little bit of like a, oh, that's cool, where he still has it with him, like later on. And that's as loose as I can really put it without like spoiling little things, which I don't want to spoil. It's a little inconsequential and I don't bother doing it, but if you want to feel a bit better about yourself later on, go right ahead. On my blind playthrough I did it because I was determined to do as many side quests as possible as I went through.
Probably, you know. Oh.
You know what? It's probably just kid stuff. It's probably like his toys he just doesn't want other people to see. What were you thinking, Prompto? You probably, you know, oh, fucking dirty-minded. Like, most kids don't like their parents or things like that looking in on what they play with.
Let's call it a day.
But anyway, if you rest up here, it is a free rest, so you're not getting any experience bonuses, but you get a nice little cute cutscene of everyone kind of chilling together, which is why I wanted to show it off. Also, I'm not sure how 2 days elapsed ended up happening, but it did. Like, we stormed the fort, we came to Cape Cairn, did a few things, and suddenly nearly 3 days had passed, because that was approaching the night time of the set at the end of the second day. But I like this cutscene because everyone just comes in, chills. You got Iris, you got Talcott, you got Iggy and Nox. Prompto's messing over there with Talcott having a bit of laugh, and everyone's together. I like it. It's good to see almost like a family come together, even though they're not all quite family. Like, the exception of Talcott, they all love each other. Because Talcott's just a kid they're looking after. I say that, Talcott's a good kid. He's a video game kid, so of course he is, but he's a good kid. Which is rare for me to say, because anyone who knows me knows I don't like most video game, book, or TV shows' interpretation of children. I always feel like they're too exaggerated and not realistic of what children are actually like.
How's she doing this?
Oh yeah, and Gentiana just shows up again.
Boss, come now. It's nothing special.
That is pretty cool. Do I save it? Yes, I do.
Likes.
Quit it.
On 91 photos. Like, the old limit wasn't 200, it was much lower. I can't remember what it was, but I remember it being quite dauntingly low in comparison to what it is now. So it's kind of good that they upped it, so I can go wild saving everything. But the last thing I show is coming back with the crops after one night's rest. Which I get 4 Kayam carrots. And that's when the guy will come over and say, hey, I'll give you something cool if you give it back to me.
Say,
This guy.
everyone's working his garden.
With the most generic ass not fantasy name ever. Hi Tony.
Cody, I run a restaurant not too
Jesus.
far from here.
Like, that's almost as bad as Dave, the Hunter Dave.
You have a great plot, perfect for growing.
Like, why have a fantasy game and then not give everyone fantasy names? The only one that's acceptable are Sid, Biggs and Wedge. Because they're series staples. But you can give him 1 for Gil, 2 for berries, 3 for car parts, or 4 for a weapon. I always give him 4 for a weapon because they're usually upgradable weapons like the Force Stealer.
D's up. I'll be back to buy whatever you're willing to sell. Your veggies? I'll be back to buy whatever you're willing to sell.
But that's pretty much it. So next time on Final Fantasy 15, we've finally got to hop on the Royal Vessel and go on our boat journey to Altissia and advance the plot, because things are going to start getting hectic pretty damn fast. But until then, you guys take care now.